Welcome in, everyone, to Red Cedar Radar. My name is Brad LaPlante. Hello, how are you? Sydney, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I am great. What a surprising intro that I just did. So it is. I'm trying to make it different each week, and that's not going too well. Anyway, how was your week?
It was good. I am off from school and my internship now, so I'm kind of living freely a little bit, which is nice. Heading into the holidays. How are you all ready and set for the holidays?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I got my Christmas gift shopping done. It's
Good.
been a lot. Like, we went to Target because there's a snowstorm this week.
Yeah,
and
there
so
is.
anyone who is doing any last minute shopping has to, like, I don't know if you were, I was just at the Lake Lansing Meijer, and the line, so there were 30 people in line.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
even
imagine.
joking. There were 30 people. It went all the way back to where like the regular checkouts were. And that was, and all I was buying, oh my God, one thing. I was in line for one thing. So
That's the worst.
it is the worst. I've never seen anything like that. But Michigan State has it's sort of a I would say down period, but early signing day was this week. What I guess were your, and we'll get into it in a second, but what were your sort of takeaways?
I mean,
If
it
you
was
have any.
exciting to have some football news, and it seemed like lots of positive things coming in. Like we kind of mentioned before, I'm not a recruiting expert, so I don't know exactly, all the ins and outs of, everyone coming in. But it seemed like a steady stream of some exciting guys coming in. So positive news, at least in the football realm, I think.
Yeah, I think especially since people were so down on it for maybe a hot second. It did seem like it was a good breath of optimism for the program. Yeah. I also thought it was interesting with a couple things around like college football just in general. I mean, you have Deion Sanders now going to Colorado, people kind of reacting to that. And then you also have there was some drama apparently in the Big Ten West where like Northwestern's Luke it was Wisconsin's Luke Fickell was in some like drama with Minnesota's head coach PJ Fleck, and
Really?
it was this whole thing. The only reason I accidentally mentioned Northwestern is because their class looks actually surprising too. They won one game last year, and now they have like the seventh. I think it is the seventh best Big Ten class so far, but still, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're ahead of programs who seem to be on definitely a higher trajectory than them, if anything.
Interesting. I didn't know that. So
anyway, we're just glad that we're not involved in all that.
The only thing I wanted to mention is we're recording a little bit later this week because of early signing day, like the early signing period starting, and then MSU played Oakland yesterday, so we wanted to record kind of after some of those things happened so that we had more to talk about, and so you could listen to our episode for longer.
Right. Yes, it will. It'll be relevant episode because when stuff happens on a Wednesday, it's like, what can you do? What can you do?
Right.
So with that said, our co-host today is Ryan O'Blennis. He is our managing editor at Spartans Illustrated. So that's very exciting. Let's bring him on.
Let's do it. Here he comes. Slowly.
Slow. It's loading. Here it goes. Hello, Ryan. How are you?
Hey, guys.
What's up? Ryan, if you could, just give us a little bit of, I guess, what's your takeaway overall from yesterday's early signing day period, just as an overall, what you think.
I think Michigan State signed a really solid class. I think there were a lot of ups and downs throughout the cycle, but they ended up really, coming away with a lot of good players, both from high school and from the transfer portal. And also they got the top-rated junior college offensive lineman in Keyshawn Blackstock. So, overall it was a really good class. There were, some guys who, they didn't end up hanging on to, but pretty much everybody who was expected to sign as of yesterday did, and given kind of the ever-changing landscape of college football that, Mel Tucker talked about that a lot at his press conference yesterday. It really was a good class.
My dog is barking, if you hear that in the background. But I just wanted to ask about the press conference a little bit more. So you were there yesterday. Anything that he said, it can be, about a specific recruit or the class in general, that stuck out to you as like a really positive point going forward for the team?
Yeah, I wrote an article on this. I think the thing that really stood out to me was what he said about, it was important for Michigan State to sign Spartan dogs, as in people who believe in the culture at MSU and people who want to be there to be Spartans, to be part of the program, to help the team in any way they can, not necessarily come there because they got the best NIL offer or, some other incentive. It's because they actually want to be on campus. They want to be part of the team. They want to help in any way that they can. That's part of Mel Tucker and the SAS evaluation process. As he said, it's not just what they bring on the field, but it's how they fit with the team, within the culture, and everything how recruiting has changed with the transfer portal, with name, image, and likeness, and with everything else that's constantly changing with college football. The conference realignment, all of that stuff plays factors now in how you recruit kids, how you keep them on your roster. He talked about, even after a kid commits, you still have to recruit them every day to stay, because now more than ever, with negative recruiting with NIL, kids flip to different schools, they decommit, it's just a normal thing now. So it's really hard to hang on to.
Do you think that Michigan State will be successful in this? I mean, that's a really interesting, I think, way to put it too, because like you said, you see kids leaving all the time to, wherever. And I think a good example is right down the road, right? You have Michigan, not necessarily about Cade McNamara, but specifically like Eric All, right? Like it feels like he was on board with Michigan for so long. And then, all of a sudden, maybe something happened in the program where he doesn't get necessarily the right taste of, what Michigan's about. And all of a sudden he's with Iowa now. You know what I mean? Like you try to avoid that as much as possible. So do you think that Mel Tucker will do that?
There's always going to be probably some kids from the class who end up transferring out later if they don't get the playing time that they were hoping for, or something doesn't work out for them. But overall, I think this class is, all of them believe that they want to be at Michigan State, want to be part of it. They want to help build something special here. Another point that Tucker made was that a lot of the kids that they went after and the transfer players that they went after in this class is to help build depth on the roster from top to bottom, because you saw it with Michigan State's team last year. When you get a lot of injuries and you don't have the players to come in as backups and third string guys who can come in and play winning football, then that matters. He said that's how you close the gap with the best teams in the country, is that your roster from top to bottom, your second string guys are as good as your starters in a lot of cases that can come in. So I think, guys in this class are going to play different roles, right? A lot of the transfers, some of them might come in and make immediate impact, have an immediate impact role. Some of them might be as depth players. The freshmen, a lot of them, freshmen next year, the high school recruits coming in, a lot of them, might take a year or two to develop. Some of them will have an opportunity for early playing time. I think Blackstock from the junior college rankings is going to come in and immediately, either start at one of the tackle spots or rotate in. He could also even play guard. They like him as a tackle, though. So, Yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict what will happen in the future exactly. I'm sure that there will end up being some guys from this class who eventually transfer out, but overall, everybody right now seems very committed. They're happy to be here. They're excited, that they want to make an impact one way or the other, even if that's just as a scout team player at practice for their first year, whatever. I think everybody's bought in.
And I feel like that's something he highlighted in his press conferences a couple times, that they were like missing some of those, like, what did he say, like little plays, like I think he said inches, like things are happening throughout the game, like little mistakes were all adding up. And I feel like adding that depth and him working on this specifically is something that he's highlighted a lot, and it's nice to hear that you feel like that he's closing those gaps a little bit, because I think that's something that was missing this past year. Any individual players that you want to highlight at all that you've spoken to, a little bit more than some of the others? Anything specific as far as like individual guys that you want to mention?
Yeah, so we got thrown into this whole recruiting thing and pretty much in the middle of this ramp up period to early signing day. So it's been interesting for me trying to figure this whole thing out. And a lot of the players were already committed and solid before we started with rivals, but a lot of the newer commits who all signed yesterday too is a lot of those players I did get a chance to talk to. Jalen Barberin, Sean Brown, Sam Levitt, and Jalen Smith, and a lot of those guys were kind of late risers. That Michigan State staff, Mel Tucker, Saeed Khalif, and the various position coaches were able to not only identify but also build these strong bonds and relationships with. Levitt was committed to Washington State, and Brown was committed to Arizona, so they had to put a little bit of extra time into to not only make them feel comfortable with Michigan State, but they actually flip them off of their commitments from other schools. And Barberin is a kid who I've been talking to a lot. He's got excellent speed. Mel Tucker called him one of the fastest players in the country. He's run a 100-meter dash in 10.37 seconds, which at the time was the fastest recorded time in the country. So Tucker, he was right about that. And Jalen Smith, he calls him the most underrated player in the country. I can't say that I've evaluated every player in the country, but I can say that I definitely agree with him. He's not highly rated for some reason, but if you watch his highlight and his tapes and you talk to him, he's got offers from various Ivy League schools. So he's got a good head on his shoulders, but he's a great playmaker on the field and can be used all over the place. And I've spoken to Levitt, I've spoken to Brown. They're all really excited to get on campus. Levitt had built a strong relationship with offensive coordinator Jay Johnson, and that's kind of what pulled him in. The Brown, Levitt, and Barberin all visited MSU together. Barberin and Levitt were at Washington State the week prior too for an official visit, so they kind of got to know each other a little bit there. And I was talking to Barberin about it. He was talking about bringing the West Coast flair over to Michigan State with those three. And Jalen Smith, he's out of Texas, but he is originally from New York. So he told me that growing up kind of on the east over there, he was well aware of Michigan State, and ever since he was a kid, he's wanted to come here. So those are the four most recent recruits that I've spoken to the most.
My only last question is, any gaps that you're seeing that Michigan State hasn't filled yet with these players that signed?
Yeah, Tucker mentioned that for the defensive backs, they were focused more on the cornerback position. He also mentioned that there were 4 additional players he couldn't name yet because they weren't signed, but it did seem like he was alluding to Reggie Pearson, Jr. from Texas Tech, who ended up actually committing to Oklahoma today. So I think that was a bit of a surprise. I'm wondering if they might still go after a transfer portal safety or not. But as far as the high school ranks, I think if they're able to add another offensive lineman, that would be nice. But the 3 that they added, if you count Blackstock as a junior college, and Stanton Ramil's going to be really good too, and Cole Dellinger, he's a 4-star guard. So those are all 3 really good players there. But that's another position they can look at. And I think a lot of the between the transfer portal and the high school ranks, that they hit a lot of the positions of need. And like I said, what they really were trying to do is not only get eventual starters, but build the depth. So I think they did a good job of that.
Going back to Levitt real quick, do you think that there's any way to I know some have said that he's not very highly rated, but definitely has some sort of potential or ability to, even be a starter in that in that role at some point after Hauser or whatever it may be. Is there a way to, I guess, for fans' sake, to sort of rate him? What would I guess where would you put him in terms of, does that make sense, other QBs?
Yeah, I don't know, if there's a specific quarterback I would compare his game to, but I would say that if you watch, some of his film and his highlights, you see that he's a quarterback who can throw on the run very well. He can absolutely sling the ball with some zip on it, but he can also, he's a pass-first quarterback, but he can take off with his feet when needed and make plays that way. Tucker called him a football junkie. And, when I spoke to Levitt on the phone, he also used the term football junkie to describe himself and Jay Johnson too. So he's a bit of a gym rat. He's always working. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him because you have Thorne coming back. You have Caton Hauser, who, is supposed to be the quarterback of the future. So I think Levitt long-term could develop in the background and eventually be able to take over the starting reins. I think that he brings a unique skill set to that quarterback room. He's probably going to be the most mobile of the bunch, and he's always going to work for it. So I think that he is definitely a player to watch moving forward in the future. He's not going to be an early enrollee. He told me that he's still got a couple classes to finish. So he's going to graduate with the rest of the normal seniors, in May, and then come over to Michigan State and enroll in the summer. A lot of the quarterbacks do end up enrolling early, but I think with him it's fine because, like I said, he's you got Thorne, Hauser, and Kim all above him on the depth chart right now, so he's going to have an opportunity to come in there and learn from those guys and just be able to develop on his own timeline. There's not a lot of pressure on him, but I think that he is eventually a quarterback who could end up being a good starter for MSU in the future.
No, that's super good because, you can never have, too many quarterbacks, right? We all saw with Michigan, they even had that problem with all of their, they had a bunch of talent at the top, and eventually you pick the right guy, and the right guy ends up, forwarding on your offense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think a lot of those kind of under the radar guys like Levitt, like Barber, and like Brown, like Jalen Smith, and several others in this class. Zai Johnson too, I think, is another one who could end up being a difference maker in this class. Who was a bit of a late riser in terms of the recruiting rankings and everything like that. But I think there are quite a few. There's a lot of top level talent in this class too, with several 4-stars. But there's also, as we talked about, a lot of under the radar guys who could end up being good depth pieces or starters in the future if they develop. And I think that there's a lot of versatility within the group too. I think with the transfer portal players, some of them are going to be instant impact, like I talk about, like Tamise Adelaide. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Tucker wasn't even sure about the pronunciation at the press conference yesterday. But he's coming over from Texas A&M as a defensive lineman who's got a lot of versatility, who can play inside or outside. And I think with Brandon Jordan coaching him, he's going to be end up making a pretty good impact for the Spartans. And I think Nathan Carter at running back is a guy who can come in and spell Jalen Berger, who is I think Berger's going to be the lead back again. But I think with Carter, I think that's a good add. Jared Jackson from Florida State, he's another kind of depth piece with experience on that defensive line. And the kicker, Jonathan Kim, too, I confirmed with him that he's going to be not only doing kickoffs, he was kind of a kickoff specialist at North Carolina. but he's actually going to be kicking field goals for Michigan State too. Tucker said he has one of the strongest legs in the country, and I think he said that he led the country in touchbacks last year. So, and all of the transfer portal guys are all going to be early enrollees and get here in January and be able to go through the strength and conditioning program, be able to get used to the culture at the program, get used to the teammates, go through spring ball. So, I think that's huge. There's also several freshmen who are going to enroll early too. Jalen Thompson. I thought Jalen Thompson told me he was going to enroll early actually, but he's not listed as an early enrollee here. But Cole Dellinger, Andrew DePape, Jordan Hall, Bay Joe, Brennan Parachek, Stanton Ramil, and Chance Rucker are all listed as early enrollees. So, that's going to be big for those guys to get on campus early and, kind of get used to everything.
This is going to reveal some of my ignorance about this whole thing. I didn't realize that they could do like an early enrollee thing like that and come to campus. But I feel like you're right. Just coming to campus and getting acclimated is a huge deal before, and getting to know the team and the layout and the schedule of how they do things and getting to do that early, I think is exciting.
Right, and they can also participate. I mean, spring practice is huge, right? Just not only getting used to just the atmosphere and some of these guys, like I don't know, like you mentioned that kicker, North Carolina, is far different from Michigan, right? Just getting acclimated to the environment, the geography, the climate of of where the program is pretty important.
Tucker mentioned this is kind of his first national class where they have players coming in from all over the country. So, a lot of them, between the transfer portal and the high school recruiting, a lot of them might not be used to the Michigan climate. So that is something else to get used to.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. But anyway, I think that is all we have for you, Ryan. Real quick, we are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with some basketball. Today's episode is sponsored by Nudge Printing, owned and operated by two Michigan State alums, Gabe and Brittany.
Nudge prints all their apparel in mid-Michigan. In addition to being licensed by Michigan State, they also have collegiate licenses for several universities, including Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, and many more.
Nudge sells polos, hoodies, jackets, car decals, t-shirts, you name it. They even have a decal for cornhole boards. So, Sydney, which Nudge shirt are you wearing today?
I have on, it's called the Vintage State Cursive Script t-shirt, and I have to say, I really like it. It's nice and soft, and I'm a big soft t-shirt person, so it has my vote 100%.
I'm in the Michigan State. It's very fitting, actually. Very fitting. And I don't just mean that it fits me well. No, it's very fitting because it's the Michigan State hockey logo t-shirt. So it's good. My wife approves of it, so I put it on.
Good deal.
And she was happy. So
that's all that matters.
Exactly. So
right now, Nudge Printing is offering $10 off of any Michigan State t-shirt. The coupon code is TRYUS, and it ends on December 31st. That is TRYUS, all caps, all one word, to get $10 off any Michigan State t-shirt.
Just head to the show notes on YouTube or your podcast platform, wherever you're listening, for the link, or head to nudgeprinting.com. That is nudgeprinting.com.
All right, so now that we've talked recruiting and kind of gone over everything MSU football related with our guest Ryan, we want to talk a little bit about basketball. We don't have too much to share with you because basketball has been a little light lately with the end of the semester and Christmas break and stuff. But MSU just played Oakland last night after not playing for 11 days. They ended the game with a win, 67-54. And it wasn't a great game, but they ended with a win, and that's really all that matters. MSU currently sits at 8-4 overall on the whole season. And the most important note from the game is that Izzo wore an ugly Christmas sweater the whole time.
That.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Oakland's coach, Greg, is it Cramp? Or Camp? Sorry, Camp. Greg Camp, I think. Yeah, Greg Camp.
You're asking the wrong guy. I do not know how
Oakland's
to
head coach.
Oakland University's head basketball coach.
He's a great guy. I think him and Izzo get along really well. I'd say they're friends. He called Izzo up and said, "Hey, I think we need to wear ugly Christmas sweaters." And Izzo delivered with a kind of bright green elf sweater, which I thought was hilarious because later in the game he got a technical foul while wearing an elf sweater, and that's never been done before, so I thought it was a nice touch.
Hilarious stuff.
Yes, get right into it if you don't have anything to add to that little intro.
No, not at all, actually.
Okay. All right. So with Oakland coming back to the Breslin, I just wanted to mention really quickly, brought back a former player in Rocket Watts, who I wasn't at the game, but I heard the crowd gave him a warm welcome, a nice round of applause, which is nice. And Izzo was thankful for that in the press conference. Watts ended the game with 4 points, and he's also a dad now, so congrats to him on that. That's very exciting. Yeah. As far as the rest of the game goes, Izzo called it a hodgepodge in the post-game presser, and I agree wholeheartedly with that take. It was just kind of all over the place. Even though they had 11 days off, I feel like with the end of the semester and the holidays coming up, their heads weren't fully in it. Brooks, let's start. Brooks was unable to play for the whole first half of the game because apparently he was late to a couple things. That's what Izzo said. He came into the second half, but I didn't really think he ever really found his stride. And I feel like, you can agree or disagree with me on this, but I feel like sitting cold the whole first half of a game is not going to always lead to a very successful second half, in my opinion.
Absolutely not. No, I mean, that is pretty tough to do.
Yeah, well, and I feel like, I obviously don't know the situations about why he was late, but I like that Izzo is the type of guy that kind of sticks to those rules and holds his players accountable. But I would expect nothing less from him as far as that stuff goes.
Yeah.
Next up, Hauser got hit in the face in the first half, bloody mouth, and I got scared, but he didn't lose any teeth. I was worried he was going to be out the whole game.
Dude's out here being a hockey player, my goodness.
Yeah, he comes out, just front tooth missing. I wouldn't have laughed, but it would have been a little funny.
Sometimes you have to.
Yeah, so he went out while they were already struggling a little bit, so then I was getting a little bit worried. He came back after being in the locker room for a little while, no signs of any injury, and so he kept playing. But I just feel like that added to the chaos of how weird the game was, that happened and he came and left, and I just feel like he's been a constant for the team, so while he was out for that little bit of time, it was a little bit more shaky. And my last point before I ask you to chime in and discuss a few things with me is that I already mentioned this. Izzo got a technical foul. I feel like it was necessary with how the team was playing. I feel like he was trying to fire him up a little bit. They had been flat for a little while, and I think that was his way of doing his part to kind of get the team back on track, and it worked.
Yeah, I didn't see the game, but I was told that nobody was there.
Well, the Izzo isn't there.
At all. It wasn't just that nobody showed up. It's just that nobody would or it was just evaporated. It looked like the volleyball court.
Yeah, I mean, it
were
just...
Were there seats, or was it just nobody's there?
I don't know. I wasn't at the game, but...
I guess you can't really see it on TV either.
No, but it looked... I mean, with the Izzo not there anyways, I feel like that brings the energy way down in the Breslin.
Yeah.
Just because they're constantly there making noise, and when they're not there, it's probably quite a shift in how the Breslin sounds. So I feel like that was his way of firing them up, and I think it worked.
Interesting.
It was hilarious.
Well, I know, like, I was at the Northwestern game. That's the only game I've been to so far this season. And, I mean, even then, like, I guess it was funny because, so David comes up to me, right, our publisher, and he comes up to me, and he took a video of the Izzone, and he tells me, he's like, they're not, like, loud right now. And I'm like, I think that's loud. Like, that's just me. You know, I mean, I don't know. Because, okay, most of the games that I go to or have been to, for some reason, have only been, like, very quiet games. I don't know why that is, right? But so I mean, mainly last season I went to their game against High Point, which was like December 27th, right? So it was just funny, I guess, you know, because nobody's there anyway. So I was like, it's louder than last time. That's all I know.
Yeah. So I am still a student at MSU, but I was in undergrad. I was in the Izzone like all the time, religiously, and there is nothing like the feeling of, you know, screaming at the top of your lungs with, you know, all your Izzone friends. Like, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it sometimes. It's just, like, there's nothing like it, and I can't imagine coming and playing at the Breslin with all these crazy people screaming at you. So to not have that, I feel like is a big shift in energy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at some point, if nobody's there, right, it just feels like, I mean, it's worse than playing a neutral site game, you know?
Yeah. You want to have that energy behind you when you're playing at home, definitely.
Right.
Yeah. Just some other points. So Jaden Akins had a career-high 15 points. I know you didn't see the game, but I am seeing flashes of his usual play, and I think having the 11 days off for rest continued that progression for him, since he's still coming off an injury. I am hoping that holiday break and only the one Buffalo game will continue that for him, but I think he's an integral part of the team, and having him back is very important. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of players on this team are going. I think you're going to start seeing that. That's my prediction, anyway. Is that you're going to start seeing a lot of players return to what would be called normalcy. I mean, it's not even just the opponents, just the travel in general. Right, was just so weird and very. You know, it wasn't the best. Wasn't the best, right? So now you're gonna, you're with a lot of local play, and in the Midwest, in the Big Ten, you're gonna see a lot more guys like, for example, Akins, maybe getting back to their normal strides. I think, and you're going to see, maybe Hauser not feel like he has to carry this team on a day-to-day basis. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think that's definitely a positive point of having a little bit of a break for them. I agree.
Right. So like we said last week, I mean, this break is probably going to be huge for them.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to something else. After the game, Izzo took some questions about the possibility of Keon Coleman joining the team. Izzo said he was a little bit hurt, I think something with his quad at the end of the football season, so he needed some time to recover. But based off the way he was talking, I rewatched it, listened to what Izzo was saying. It seemed promising that Coleman will join the team. He had some positive comments about his ability to kind of like know the scheme that they're using and keep up with the way that they practice. So it seemed like a positive point in Izzo's book that he could be joining. What is your opinion about Keon Coleman joining the basketball team? Will he join, and should he join, in your opinion?
So, I think that it would be a good thing because, well, I mean, if you have the talent, right? Like, if you have the, I don't even care if he's an incredible asset, right? But like, are you at least a neutral performer, right? Like, that's, I feel like the important part would be, you know, your plus minus, is that going to be at least hover around a neutral, you know, maybe be -2, +2 per game, right? Like, because I'm not thinking of Keon Coleman, Malik Carr. Like, I'm not thinking of these guys as being primary assets, right? Like, they're not primary basketball players. But, you know, for example, if the football season wasn't happening, if Keon Coleman was on the team, he might be able to, I guess, you know, maybe avoid some of the blow that Michigan State took for having Hall out, for having these players out, right? You add depth to your roster with that. So I think that that's what they could provide. And if, God forbid, another player get injured like that, then you have guys who can step up. I mean, God knows what happens if Tyson Walker's out. What happens if, you know, some of these guys who mean a lot to the program, what happens if they go out? You're going to need guys to step in. And I think that Michigan State's at a point where they have like a couple freshmen on the roster, but not many guys that can step up on a day-to-day basis. I think that the Michigan State had a big advantage last year in that their roster was very depth-heavy. And while that was good, I don't think that it didn't end up helping them in the tournament, because they didn't have sort of that star power that you need to. And this year they don't have that either, but I think it's more of the veteranship on this team. But I think they've sacrificed some of that depth for that, right? Like, I think that you have guys that work better together, and that's sort of the trade-off for that star power, as they would say.
Yeah, well, and like, just using the Brooks situation from this past game as an example, he had to sit out the first half. Having another guy in Coleman that could cycle through doesn't necessarily have to be right for Brooks, but like, if things could be shifted around and having another guy there, that'd be important. And he's an athlete. He will play hard. I mean, Izzo giving him praises is enough for me, because I trust Izzo with my life. So I feel like it'll be a positive point, and I think he also offers some difference in personality. I follow him on Twitter. I feel like he has I don't know what the word would be. I mean, he has confidence about him, which would be good for the basketball team, since they've kind of been a little bit shaky. Having a guy that has that confidence is good for fans to see, I feel like.
Yeah, someone who can really light the fire.
Yeah. Last thing that I have to say, Malik Hall, Izzo gave some points about him. Obviously, he's been injured for quite a while. Izzo hopes that Malik Hall is able to return for the Buffalo game. He said he hopes to get him 10 to 15 minutes. I think it's going to be a longer road for Hall to get back, obviously, to how he was playing pre-injury. But that is some very exciting news, very positive news from Izzo. And 10 to 15 minutes is good enough for me in the Buffalo game. Getting him out there, that means he's practicing, and I feel like that's definitely the step that the team needs him to take.
Yeah, and I think that this break was almost, you know, very necessary, and we've talked about this before, but like, you know, you see Hall, right? And Akins is back, which is great, right? Now, and I mean, Izzo was kind of right? Like, the timetable for Akins to return was, well, not return, but get back to his normal self was, you know, about 2 weeks. I mean, it was, you know, 2 weeks since he returned from the injury. Now 2 weeks has gone by. I think Hall's probably going to be about the same, I would imagine, 10, 14 days. And they're going to have some games in there, but he's definitely going to have to ramp up to what he was.
Yes,
and I think that it'll take a couple. It'll just take a couple weeks, and I think that MSU is going to have to be patient and get by without him before then.
Yeah, and Izzo said they'll be moving to 2-a-day practices over this break after Christmas, and obviously they're going to take it slow with Malik, but I think that will be a good thing for him so that he can get even more practice under his belt before Big Ten play starts to ramp up. So I think that is going to work well for him. I hope it is, because I feel like the team definitely needs him back.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Looking ahead, obviously we have Buffalo on December 30th. I'll be there at the game with Ryan, who we just had on as our guest. And then Big Ten play starts. So we'll have much more news once that all rolls around. For now, only one game to discuss.
Right? Yeah. I don't know if you want me to break down Buffalo basketball. Although it is coming up in a couple weeks, so I don't know if we're gonna I know we're trying to get stuff together to talk about Buffalo when that rolls around, stuff like that. I know that next week next week's show will be pre-recorded, specifically because I will be out of town. I'll be in Grand Rapids. I will be covering Michigan State hockey in the Great Lakes Invitational. They take on Ferris State on Tuesday next week, and then on Wednesday they take on the winner of Western Michigan and Michigan Tech. So very exciting stuff. If anyone wants to go, you can find the Munsters Twitter has like special discount codes for anyone who wants to join in on the Munster section. So nice. Tickets are kind of expensive, low key, for that event. I don't it's college hockey. Get this. So, and I'm not afraid to say this, by the way, but it's college hockey at Van Andel Arena, right? So it's not like it's in Detroit or anything, and it's I found some tickets, like they're like front row, so they're like nice, but they're like, God, it's like $198, and they're not resale tickets either. It's like imagine paying $200 to watch Michigan State college hockey. That just doesn't seem... I feel like
that just comes with the territory of them doing much better this season. The
sure,
prices
but
will
like, I mean,
reflect
okay,
that.
but like, you're going to watch them play Ferris State. Like, that is a lot of money to ask. Because it's not like it's Grand Rapids Griffins tickets, which the AHL team,
which they are very fun
money
to watch. By the way, just putting that out there, they have fun things that they put on in that stadium or in their arena. I went there. They had Margaritaville night. I got a free sombrero hat.
I have to go to that. No way.
It's so fun.
That is
anyway,
good.
sorry.
Good
just
stuff. I
putting
wish
that
that
out
Michigan
there.
State did some of that. Like, I really do, because the women's team, the club team actually puts on, and it's a shame, by the way, that they're not receiving more funding by the university. But Michigan State's women's hockey team, they have like a I think it's like a group, like a children's group, and they come put on like the national anthem or something like that. Like it's just a little gimmick to get people out to games, because it's not like it's an NCAA team. So, I wish Michigan State did more of that. Just stuff that's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, they do like the pizza toss.
Okay, don't even get me started on that. That's a sham, and that is rigged. I was in the ISON for 4+ years, because I'm still a student there. I never once got it. It's rigged.
Yeah, I mean, how many people are there every day?
I was there every... just shut this down, because I could go on and on about the Pizza House delivery. Whatever.
I think the what's the other one? The helmet shuffle. I think that is rigged.
That's where you and I disagree. I love that.
So actually, someone said at one point, and they were wrong, by the way. Someone said that wherever it starts is where it finishes.
No,
that's not true, because it was funny, because for the first time after I heard that, for like the first 3 weeks, it always starts in the middle, and it always ended up in the middle. I was like, are they just playing the same one every day?
That's funny. You know what we should do? You know how, actually, here's a plug for Spartans Illustrated. We have a guy on our team, Paul. He writes some really cool articles, and he uses lots of math and statistics and things I'm not very good at. But what we should do is every time they play the helmet shuffle, we should record where it starts, where it ends, and then we should like do some math stuff and figure out where it most like ends most often, and we can like, I don't know, I'm rambling on about this, but we could figure out like what algorithm they use and how often they play the same videos, and then we could always have that 100% correct because we would know where it was going to end up next.
Yeah.
Pick out those patterns. I'll talk to Paul.
I think here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get an in with whoever plays it.
Oh,
and then
I guess maybe that's easier.
Which video are you playing today?
Maybe that's easier than fake doing all that math. Yeah.
Darn.
Well, I do love the helmet shuffle and the Pizza House shuffle. The Pizza House helmet shuffle and the Pizza House delivery is rigged. Those are my 2 hot takes.
Your 2 hot takes. Got it. Perfect.
Okay. Anything else to talk about at the end of our episode?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll have more for you next week. Happy holidays.